A week of mourning commences today for the late IFP founding President Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Buthelezi passed away on Saturday at the age of 95. His family confirming that he will be laid to rest this coming Friday. Well, for more on reflections on the life and time of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, I'm joined now by Mphumeleli Ngidi. He's from the School of History and political expert, or political analyst perhaps, Zakhele Ndlovu. To both of you, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Let me start with you, Mr. Ngidi, and ask the question about when we reflect as a country on the legacy of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, what should be foremost in mind? How should we remember him, in essence?
Yes. Good morning to the viewers at home, and thank you for welcoming me. The legacy of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi has to be viewed in different ways. Different people view him as in different ways. His legacy consists of him being a politician, a struggling a stalwart, and also a person who vied or fought for Zulu nationalism, who's part of the Zulu monarchy. That's what we will remember him, and also those who know him in a personal level, in the area of Mashlabathini, Olundi, will attest more of his character, of his attitude towards their community, and how he assisted them, and also not only in his area but in the whole of KZN, and politically in South Africa and beyond its borders. So he would, in shortly, he will be remembered as a person who played a gigantic role in politics, in the Zulu kingdom, and also social.
Mr. Ndlovu, let's bring you into the conversation. As a political man, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, it would seem that when it comes to the political side of things, there is a lot of criticism that has been leveled, particularly during that period of the black-on-black violence, and the accusation against the IFP was that it was clearly sponsored by the apartheid regime. But this morning, the leader of the IFP, trying to counter that, he says it's unfair for Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi to go down in history as a leader who preferred violence over negotiations, for example. And he says you can't say that about the IFP only, given the period that was at that time and leaving out the ANC. Is he correct in his view?
Well, that's a very good question. I think that we have to keep in mind that perceptions in politics are very, very important. And of course, as we know, that perception can be something that is real or imagined. So there is a perception that in the 1980s up to the early 1990s, Chief Buthelezi is someone that should be blamed for political violence that happened in some parts of the country. But I think we need to also remember that when we talk about the legacy of Prince Buthelezi, we need to take into account different historical periods, and remember that even though he might have been accused of inciting violence, of being on the side of the apartheid regime, he later on was someone who became the voice of reason in Parliament, and of course he, was seen as an elder statesman. So I think when we discuss his legacy, I think we need to consider all these different historical periods and the role that he played during those different historical periods.
Yeah, Mr. Ngidi, we know that there were two facets of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, the politician and the traditional leader. Let's talk about the traditional aspect of things, because I think as we move closer to the day that he will be laid to rest, questions are already being asked from the element that he served, which was that of being the Prime Minister of the Zulu nation, and that is that who might be the successor, or is that too early to contemplate at this time? If so, do you foresee any divisions, though, any fighting for that role which he played, that of being the traditional Prime Minister of the Zulu nation?
All right, thanks. The position of a traditional Prime Minister is very important in the Zulu kingdom, because the Prime Minister, or Undunankulu wesizwe, plays a pivotal role, and is always have to be on the side of the king. The position is unlike that one of the succession of a king, when a king has to ascend to the throne. But with the position of the Prime Minister, the traditional Prime Minister, it differs, because the Prime Minister is chosen by the reigning king. So the reigning king has to appoint who should be the traditional Prime Minister, similar to when the current king, King Mangosuthu Buthelezi, appointed the spokesperson. Yeah. So as Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi served for 69 years from 1954, coincidentally, he assumed this position in September, in the commemoration of King Shaka in September 1954. He was raised or opted by King Bhekuzulu Solomon, who was the reigning king at that time. So ever since then, since the times of Shaka, King Shaka choosing Ungomane, and the other 9, the previous 8 kings, this is the 9th one, they chose who should follow. But what is of significance here, or what we should take note, is the role that has been played by the Buthelezis in the Zulu monarchy. They've played a huge role, because we should remember that also the father of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, Inkosi Mathole, was also the prime minister, and also Umnyamana Kangangelele in the late 1800s was also the prime minister. Even before this, there have been roles being played by the Buthelezi clan in the Zulu kingdom. But the difference here with Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi is that out of all the 9 kings that has ruled, he has served 3 kings, and also is the only one who has blood relations to the Zulu family. The Zulu family is his maternal home. So there's a difference. So now is the ball rests on the courts of King Mangosuthu to choose who should be the next prime minister. So the big question will be that kuzoba khona inokuqashuka kwebhoda kwabakaButhelezi asebebambele role isikhathi esingaka over the years being prime ministers, being Ndunankulu, because if it doesn't, the current king chooses not to appoint a person of the Buthelezi clan, that would mean that ukuqashuka kwebhoda between abakaButhelezi playing a significant role and the monarchy. That could maybe perhaps create a rift there and there, because there are already assumptions that because of the Ingonyama Trust, the king and the prime minister were as loggerheads. We are hoping that such should be buried. They should bury. A hatchet should be buried between the Buthelezis and the Zulu monarch. We don't see any friction, but if it perhaps happens, it should be diminished.
Very, very interesting aspect there on the traditional aspect of the role that was played by Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Let's come back to the politics, Mr. Ndlovu. And there is this wish that is now being expressed by President of the IFP, Velenkosini Hlabisa, who says the Prince, before his demise, he had a wish that there would be some kind of discussion between themselves and the ANC, and to borrow from Mr. Ngidi there, to sort of bury the hatchet, to basically talk and even go as far as, I suppose, deal with matters of how those who lost loved ones during those battles, the so-called black-to-black violence days, maybe those people could possibly be compensated. But unfortunately, it wasn't to be. He has now passed. Do you think that the current leadership of the IFP and the ANC are capable of doing that, to bring the nation or this chapter to finality?
Well, I think it's important that the two political parties do that for the sake of burying the hatchet, as Ngidi just pointed out. But also, I think as a nation, we need to make sure that we are not perceived as a violent nation. As we know, the history of the two organizations, we saw in the 1980s up to the early 90s, the violence that cost more than 20,000 lives. And so I think it would be important for the two political parties to try and come up with something that's going to send a message to the people of South Africa that they have embraced peace, and that the history of political intolerance is now behind us. But I should also point out that the wish of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi for the IFP to be reunited with the ANC is not going to be easy, because if you look at the ANC, there are too many divisions within the ANC. But also some people expect that with Prince Buthelezi passing, there could be some divisions within the IFP. So what's going to be interesting to see is if those divisions that are expected to occur within the IFP occur. I would imagine that if political maturity happens within the IFP, we won't see the divisions that many people expect are going to happen with the passing of Chief Buthelezi.
To both of you, gentlemen, let me thank you very much for your time. Zakhele Ndlovu, a political analyst, thanks indeed for your insights. And Mphumeleli Ngidi, a historian, thanks indeed for sharing those beautiful reflections on the role that was played by Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, particularly on the royal aspect of things.